If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. The frontier systems are pretty much in chaos. The Galactic Republic is fighting to recover from its fight with the Sith, and mercenaries are capitalizing on the galaxy's dysfunction. On Ord Mantell, a civil war is going on between the citizens who are Galactic Republic supporters and the Separatists, which has made the world a profitable place for freelance traders, which is why someone hired you to deliver some weapons into the combat zone. That's something that took a lot of guts and a few missing brain cells, since Separatist ships have had a blockade around the planet attacking anyone who flies in. You wouldn't be much of a smuggler if you couldn't get through a blockade, so of course you make it down to the planet below without doing too much damage to your ship. The situation is a little bit worse than what you originally planned on flying into though, but Skavik, one of the people who you were supposed to meet, lets you know that the Separatists are invading a nearby village and they're attacking everyone who's not a part of their group. That's why the Republic sympathizers bought the blasters that you brought in. Skavik wants to get everything unloaded fast before the place gets overrun, and he figures you should get back off-world as soon as he's done. The loading dock is shaking from the explosions, so Skavik gives you the money for your delivery and goes to get started. But Corso Riggs, a guy who works with Skavik, comes running in screaming about how the Separatists have taken over one of the anti-air cannons, and they blew up a Republic transport ship. Normally, you wouldn't care all that much about that, but if the Separatists can shoot down ships, there's a good chance they'll shoot yours down too. They hacked the cannons and they're controlling them by remote, so if you don't break their remotes, then you won't be leaving the planet anytime soon. Since you don't have any other options, you head off to deal with the cannons while Skavik and Corso unload the weapons. The smuggler doesn't have a hard time taking down the towers, but she can't get into the targeting computer, so she does the only practical thing and shoots it. It works, disarming the anti-air cannons, which will let you leave the planet, so you call Corso to let him know. There's no time to celebrate because the Separatists have broken into the hangar. You make it back in time to deal with the attackers and save Corso, who got knocked out, but there's another problem. Apparently Skavik was working with the Separatists and helped them get into the hangar. And he did that to steal your ship and the weapon shipment. He even stole Corso's gun, Torchy, which he seems more upset about than anything else. Corso gives a call to his traitorous business associate, which is pretty much a waste of time because the man's not interested in making a deal with you. While it seems like the chance of getting your ship back is slim, Corso and Skavik were working for a guy named Vidu, and when he finds out that Skavik stole his guns for the Separatists, he's gonna be after the man too. So Corso thinks it'll be a good idea for you to go and talk to him. That way he can help you get your ship back. Since nothing comes to Ord Mantell without him knowing about it, Vidu will make a very good ally. So you head off to Fort Garnick to meet with the man while Corso gives him a call to let him know you're coming. Vidu is a big dude who loves the finer things in life like booze and food. He's been having a good life, but between Skavik and the Separatists, he's pretty sure that's all about to end in a very bad way. The weapons that got stolen were for a guy named Rogan the Butcher, and he's not exactly a forgiving boss. I'm pretty sure his name is a dead giveaway to that. But the bad news is, while Vidu was working for him, you were hired by Vidu, so Rogan is likely going to kill both of you if he doesn't get his merchandise. He wanted the weapons to protect his business from the Separatists, so the only way to get him to not murder you is to find Skavik and get the weapons back. Vidu has an idea about where you might be able to find them. He knows a guy named Reki who knows a lot about the Separatists and their plans. Thing is, he's trapped in a village that the Republic troops have blocked off to contain the Separatists. Vidu can get you into the village because he has connections, but you'll have to prove that you aren't a Separatist first. Then you'll actually have to convince Reki to help you. He'll be more willing to help if you get his people some supplies. Vidu's got that part covered, so if you can get the supplies to Reki, he should tell you how to find Skavik. So it's off to Talaran village you go. Since Vidu called ahead, Reki's been expecting you, and he tells you that the only place where you can find info on the individual Separatists and their particular orders is at Manit Point. He used to get a lot of supplies from there by using the 5-finger discount, so he knows a few shortcuts through some of their warehouses. He has them all mapped out, but he had to leave his maps when he fled the place due to being caught taking said discount. But he locked his house in a way that wouldn't have been easy to break through, so he's pretty sure that the maps are still there. The only way to open the door is to short out the power relays at the point. Then you can get the maps that he disguised as research notes on bird watching. It's a code, one that he's nice enough to teach you how to decipher, since reading through the boring documents and trying to figure it out would suck, and may earn him a blaster bolt to the forehead. Reki's maps will get you straight to the Separatist computer station without that much hassle, but all of their files are encrypted. Vidu will have to figure out a way to decipher them for you. Since he gave you what you needed, you hand Reki the supplies and go back to Vidu to let him know what's happening. When you get back to the fort, you're stopped by Serena, one of Vidu's people. She's heard about the whole incident with Skavik and she expected something like that to happen since she told Vidu not to trust the guy. She figures that the situation is a lot worse than he's putting on, but he won't tell her, so she decided to ask you. Not wanting to undermine Vidu or try to hide how likely it is that you're all gonna die if you don't find Skavik, you tell the woman to trust her own instincts before you head off to see Vidu. The large man is eating a very expensive meal, mainly because any meal could be his last since he hadn't gotten Rogan's guns back. He does feel a little better though since Reki called and told him that he gave you a way into the Separatist hideout. The whole secret passage thing finally solved the mystery of how Reki could steal from the place without getting caught for so long. But secret passages on the island won't help you get to the island. The Separatists blew up the only bridge to the place, so you'll have to swim to get there. It's unlikely that you'll just bump into Skavik on the island, but if you get the computer files, Vidu can find out where the man is. Corso wants to go with you so he can kill a few Separatists, but Vidu is sending him off to get the slicer kit so he can decrypt the files as soon as you get back. He does need it, but he's mainly trying to keep Corso from getting himself killed. The Separatists killed his whole family a few years ago, and now Corso wants to kill as many of them as he can, which is understandable. It's not exactly the smartest thing to do, but Vidu understands why he wants to do it. Before you and Vidu can debate the merits of revenge, Serena comes in to say that Rogan is calling for Vidu and he's not happy. Since the time for that man to send bounty hunters after the two of you is getting closer, Vidu sends you off to the Separatist base. It's not as hard as you expected to get into Reki's house or to find his map. However, the Separatist computer station is not exactly the easiest place to get into, since even though you're sneaking into the back, it doesn't stop you from dealing with a lot of guards. You get the information, but of course you get caught while fiddling with the computer and have to kill a guard and a robot. But you've already racked up more bodies than a serial killer, so a few more won't hurt. And once you're done, it's back to Vidu's base you go. When you get back, some of Vidu's men have decided that their boss isn't really going to be their boss for that much longer. And once he's gone, Serena's status as the favorite will be gone too. So they think it'll be a good idea for her to start making some new friends by doing some less than sanitary favors for them. Fortunately for her, you showed up and have no problem playing the role of executioner. She's extremely happy that you would defend her like that, but the men weren't wrong. Rogan is going to kill Vidu if you don't find those weapons, which means you don't have time to play around. Word of the gunfight reached Vidu since it happened downstairs, and while he gets why you did what you did and he's happy that you helped Serena, sometimes shooting people is not the best solution. But that's still not as important as the information you brought back. With Corso's slicer kit, Vidu will be able to decrypt the information, but it won't happen instantly, so while he works on the decryption, he has a job for you that may keep Rogan from trying to kill you for a little longer. There's a special chemical in the nearby village that is extremely explosive, which makes it hard to transport, but it's worth a lot of money to the Republic since they can use it to blow up a lot of Separatists. So if you go and grab some for Rogan, it may make him give you more time with the blasters. There's an insane scientist who started to use the stuff to make artillery shells more potent, but if you trip and fall while you're carrying it, you'll explode. However, if you don't, you'll make a lot of money too. Since money is more important than life to a smuggler, you head off to track down the scientist and his explosive chemicals. The man is just as unstable as his chemicals, which makes sense when you think about the stuff that he works with. But no one would expect him to be the go fishing in the middle of a war zone type of crazy. But while he's nuttier than squirrel crap, he does have what you need, and you take it to Vidu, who has a container that should keep the stuff from going boom, at least before it's supposed to. While you were out, they cracked the Separatist code and they found Skavik, and he still has your ship. He's taking the weapons to the Separatist base, which is inside of a volcano, because why not? He's delivering the weapons to a guy named Derek, who's known for being extremely violent, so you need to get there before he gets more stuff to shoot at you with. The whole mission would be hard to accomplish alone, so Vidu's sending Corso with you. He wants to kill Skavik for taking his gun anyway, so he's definitely down for a fight. So the two of you head off to finally get your ship back. There are a lot of people between you and Derek, which means you get to fire off a lot of blaster bolts. When you get to the man, he's obviously not happy that you've been putting down so many of his men, and he's not willing to cooperate with you. He tries to kill you and ends up dead, but not all of his people are willing to die for nothing, and one of them is willing to talk to you if you let him live. That's a fair trade to you, not so much for Corso, who wants to kill any separatist he finds. But this particular guy, a dude named Morant, hasn't even been a part of the group for a year, so he definitely didn't have anything to do with Corso's family's death. Skavik's been gone for hours. He had showed up a while ago to drop off the guns, but he was really there to steal an old droid. The thing had been in Derek's family for years, but it wasn't anything special as far as Morant can see. But it was obviously important to Skavik, so he shot his way back to your ship and flew off with that and the guns. Morant doesn't know where he went, but he figures Serena would know since she's Skavik's girlfriend. That is not something you or Corso expected to hear, but apparently the two of them have known each other for a very long time and they've both been scamming Vidu. She had even told the separatists that you and Corso were on the way there, so she likely knows where Skavik is headed. Even though you got the information you needed, Corso still wants to kill Morant, but since you gave him your word, you spare the guy and race back to Vidu's base. When you get there, the big man is dead. He saw Serena talking to the separatists, so she killed him. She's talking to Skavik on the HoloNet, telling him to come pick her up, but he's not gonna do that. It's always funny when people work with someone who double crosses other people and then they're surprised when they get turned on too. Unfortunately, that leaves Serena alone with you. She knows that you probably want to kill her for what she's done, but she has some information that she hopes will get you to let her live. For starters, Rogan's bounty hunters are on the way there, and it'll be a good idea to not be there when they show up. Skavik is going to Coruscant, so you can still catch him if you get moving fast. The Republic's reopened the spaceport since your escapades have hurt the Separatists enough to make them back off. Serena has a pass that will let you get on a shuttle, and she'll give it to you if you let her live. You take the pass, but you still shoot her, because only a fool would leave someone with Serena's passion for betrayal at your back. Corso didn't really agree with you shooting the woman, but that's not going to stop him from tagging along with you to finish the hunt for Skavik. So the two of you make your way to the spaceport, and you get there right when Rogan's bounty hunters show up. They came to bring you to Rogan, but of course that's something that wouldn't be good for your health, so you put the bounty hunters out of their misery and hop onto a shuttle for Coruscant, so you can hopefully track down Skavik and finally get your ship back. The war between the Jedi and the Sith isn't exactly going well for the Jedi. The Sith destroyed their temple on Coruscant and forced them to run away, so they've headed back to their homeworld on Tython to get back to their roots, regroup, and rebuild. A new Padawan, that's you, is on the way to Tython to finish his trials and do his part to strengthen the Jedi Order. As soon as your ship lands on the planet, you get welcomed by a member of the Jedi Council named C.O. Bakarn, which is a little out of the ordinary since council members don't usually show up to greet new students. But considering the fact that your potential is far beyond that of the average Padawan, C.O. wanted to see you in person. Your new teacher will be a Jedi Master named Yuan, who left her dig site specifically to train you. But she's late. That's not like her, so that means something is probably wrong. She confirms that it is once she finally gets there. Tython has a lot of old Jedi relics on it, and some of the researchers have found some hologram projectors meant to teach young Jedi. They hold records from the founders of the Jedi Order, which means they can't be replaced if something happens to them. Unfortunately, something might happen because a whole lot of flesh raiders are destroying stuff in the area. Someone needs to go out and retrieve the projectors before something happens to them, and Yuan wants that to be your first bit of training. C.O. doesn't think that's a good idea, but since you were stronger in the Force at 4 years old than Yuan was at 15, she thinks you can handle the mission. Of course, you're up to the challenge, and you head out to complete your first task. The holograms are made by the founders of the Jedi, and while you get 3 of them, someone had already stolen one, which is not something that the Wild Flesh Raiders would have done. That means someone else stole the thing. Yuan's gonna get to work on finding out who actually did it, and she wants you to meet her at the Jedi Temple. When you get there, Yuan is talking to a Trandoshan named Kizan Fess. He's a friend of hers who's in the area for a hunting expedition, which is very important to his people. They've been friends for a while, but not too many people actually approve of their friendship, not even the other Jedi. But she wanted you to meet him before anyone told you bad things about him that weren't true. After the Lizard Man heads off, Yuan lets you know that the hologram that was stolen was one from the Jedi Master Rajavari. He was one of the members of the first Jedi Council, and he was the first one to turn to the dark side. There's not much information on him, but from what Yuan knows, he was extremely powerful. The thing that was stolen could hold some of his secrets, which won't really be all that good in the wrong hands. That means you need to find it quickly. Yuan thinks it had to have been taken by the Twi'leks that are living in Kalikori Village. They're poor and pretty much have to do anything that they can to survive, which means if they did take it, they probably won't be all that eager to give it back, and that means you'll have to be very persuasive. That'll be even harder than usual since the Republic doesn't want the Twi'leks on the planet at all, and because of that, they've forbidden the Jedi from helping them in any way, even when they're being attacked by the Flesh Raiders. So they probably really don't like any of you. But you head over there anyway to talk to Bashen, the captain of the village's guard. As expected, the people of the village are not all that happy to see you, but when you tell them you were sent by Yuan, they open up to you a little bit. Out of all of the people on Tython, she apparently has been willing to help the villagers from time to time. Turns out a Twi'lek named Naylan Relloc had found the projector and took it. The man is somewhat of a hero to the villagers. He saved a lot of their lives, sets their defenses up against the Flesh Raiders, and is pretty much the reason why they are able to live in even slight comfort. So they're not all that willing to tell a Jedi where he is, since there's only so far that they trust you. However, once you tell them that the data in the hologram might actually be dangerous, they tell you where he is mainly because if a Jedi thinks something is dangerous, it's probably very dangerous for regular folks. Naylan's out in Flesh Raider territory, likely at a camp that he set up, so you head out there to try to find him. You find his camp in the heart of Flesh Raider territory, and he does have the projector. He says he goes to the area to think, and he wants to know why you're bothering him since he's not exactly in a place that anyone will wander into by accident. When you tell him that the villagers told you where to find him, he has no doubt that they also told you all about how he's supposedly their hero and all of that. But he doesn't really think he can claim that title until he's gotten rid of the monsters that attack his people for good. And he can't exactly do that until he's finished his own training. See, he's been hunting for the Jedi relics that are scattered around Tython too, and he's been using them to train himself in the ways of the Force, which is pretty impressive to be honest. But once he's mastered his new powers, he plans on forcing everyone other than his people off of the planet. That way they can finally live in peace. The things he's learned from the fallen Jedi Rajavary has made him pretty confident that he'll be able to do it. And he proves just how strong he's become in the Force by causing the cave you're in to start collapsing, for the sole purpose of burying the Flesh Raiders alive. Since you're not exactly a fan of dying along with them, you grab the projector and book it out of the cave and back to the Jedi Temple. When you get back to Yuan, you let her know about Naylan and how he's learned to use the Force from watching Rajavari's hologram. She finds that to be impressive too, but apparently the training has also made his mind a little bit unstable. That makes Yuan even more curious about what information was on the thing, so the two of you fire it up and watch. Turns out the Jedi left some information about something Yuan calls the Fount of Rajavari. When he had died, some people claimed that he had made a place that held all of his knowledge. Jedi looked for it for a long time, but they never actually found anything, so it eventually got written off as some nonsense. But since the fallen Jedi confirmed its existence out of his own mouth, that pretty much changes things. The problem is Naylan heard the same thing that you did, and he's likely looking for the Fount at that very moment, which means you need to beat him to it. The hologram left a hint saying to follow where the first blade points from the Sanctuary of Order, which Yuan thinks might be a place called Kaleth. It's a ruined fortress that was destroyed during a very big battle, and there are plenty of droids just wandering around the place, meaning it's still pretty dangerous. What she doesn't understand is the whole first blade thing. Normally when a Jedi talks about a blade, they usually mean lightsabers, but since the laser sword hadn't been invented yet, that's not possible. Either way, Yuan thinks stopping Naylan will be good training for you, so it's off to Kaleth you go. The first thing you see that draws your attention is an odd rock with some words that you can't read on it. But a very old droid shows up and lets you know that the first blade is there and he's the one who guards it. It was made by a man who saw the Jedi as warriors, not scholars, and he made the original Jedi weapon that would eventually become the lightsaber. The first blade is worn away over time, and now the only thing that's left is the hilt. There was only one Jedi who actually proved himself worthy enough to take it, and that was Rajavari. After he took it, he eventually brought it back for some reason that the droid doesn't know, and he doesn't exactly care. He just knows that if you want to take the hilt, you'll have to prove yourself in combat. The weapon master left some training droids behind so his students could actually test themselves physically, and the old droid sends you off to fight them. Once you've dealt with them, they send a report back to the old droid to let it know that you proved yourself to be a worthy warrior. So the droid gives you the first blade. The hilt's been altered a bit, and it has markings on it that are designed to store information, so it looks like the sword hilt is actually a weird flash drive full of information that you have no idea how to access. But you found it before Naylan, so you call Yuan to let her know. It makes sense to her that the hilt would be a storage device, since Rajavari said that the blade will act as a guide. She'll figure out how to get the information off of the thing, so it's time for you to head back to the temple. When you get back to the temple, you run into Master Seal again, along with another Jedi Master named Jarek. They've heard about Nayland and his hunt for Rajavari's secrets, and they've heard about how Yuan thinks that the Force is guiding you on the path after him. They've heard of the Force doing that before, but blindly trusting the Force isn't the Jedi way either. Just following it without using common sense could lead to some not so good outcomes, which makes it a terrible way for a master to train their apprentice. The fact that Yuan is letting the Force train you without any guidance, and she's bringing a Trandoshan into the temple, has the other two masters questioning her methods and her sanity. The council has voted to let her keep doing what she's doing for a while longer, but they're worried that it might end bad for you. Your mission is important, but not at the expense of your life. They leave you with that cryptic warning and you go to meet with Yuan, who's talking to Kizan. When she sees the hilt that you brought, she says that it really does look like a prototype lightsaber. Rajavari's hologram said that the hilt needs to be brought to a cave in the mountains, a cave that just so happens to be the spot where the founders of the Jedi Order became the first council. Kizan actually knows about that cave. It's full of flesh raiders, so he wants to come with you since it'll give him a chance to do a bit of hunting. Hunting powerful creatures is a primary tenet of his religion, so it makes sense why he'd be so eager to go with you. And you obviously won't mind the extra muscle, so you head off. The cave is in fact full of flesh raiders that you have to cut a path through, something Kizan says earns you a lot of points with this god, the scorekeeper. Basically, depending on how good of a hunter someone is, that determines their place in the afterlife, and you don't have to actually believe in the scorekeeper for her to keep track of your points. That's all interesting, but it's irrelevant at the moment. The only thing that matters is finding the second clue to the Fount of Rajavari, and it has something to do with the 3 giant monuments at the back of the cave. Unfortunately, the words on them have faded over time, so they're pretty hard to make out. Kizan notices that the bones piled up in front of the monument don't seem to be there on accident, and that's not something the flesh raiders would have done. So you push them out of the way and you find a small machine that has an opening that's the perfect size for the hilt you found to fit in. Before you can see what will happen when you put it in, a group of Twi'leks from Nayland's village show up. Nayland sent them to take the first blade from you, since he needs it if he's going to keep protecting their village. When you refuse to give it to them, they attack you because for some reason they think they could actually beat a Jedi. You prove them wrong, then you use the hilt on the machine, which makes a hologram of Rajavari appear. He says that the Jedi Council did form in that cave, and that was where he heard his friend's plan for the Order. And he also realized that their plan would have their group be weak and useless. So he decided to make an army and get rid of the council. That way he and his apprentices would transform the Jedi into what they needed to be. The proof that he succeeded in his mission would be if he put the hilt of the first blade back where he found it. Since you actually have the blade, that means he must have succeeded. You making it as far as you have means you're meant to find the fount, and the hologram reveals a map showing you where it is. The map isn't exactly easy to figure out, so you head back to Yuan to see if she can help you figure out where to go. The map points to some caves that Kizan has been to on some of his hunts. He had never actually been looking for any ancient Jedi ruins on his other trips there, but since he knows what he's looking for, he figures that he'll be able to find the place for you. You offer to go with him, but he's pretty sure that he can search better on his own, so he leaves you and Yuan there to keep studying Rajavari's hologram. It's a good thing that you did because there's a message saying that the Fount of Rajavari is booby-trapped, and only someone who follows the fallen Jedi's path will make it through. The problem is you have no idea what Rajavari's path was, which means you'll have to figure it out. Yuan figures that you can find that information on some of the computers that were found out in the Kaleth Fortress, since that place was Rajavari's base. The computers are all password protected. However, the hilt of the first blade might give you access to those computers too, so it's worth a shot. It works, and the computers reveal the final logs of Rajavari's apprentices. Apparently, the Jedi Council survived his attack and they were coming after his people. Since their master died in the battle, they knew they were going to share his fate, but Rajavari taught them to never show mercy, so they planned on taking as many Jedi with them as they could. They brought down a lot of them by being brutal and violent, which is pretty much the way the Sith operate, so Rajavari's path is basically being a selfish, power-hungry, violent dick. Not sure how that'll help you get past the traps, but you head back to the temple to let Yuan know what you learned. She's impressed that Rajavari had trained students who were strong enough to hold off the Jedi Council, even though it was only for a little while, but the history lesson is not as important as getting to the fount. But for some reason, Kizan hasn't made it back yet. He's had more than enough time to carry out his search, so you head out to the caves to look for him. You find him locked in a cell in one of the caves. Nayland had apparently followed him and tortured him for information on the location of the fount. He wishes the man had killed him after because there's no greater dishonor in his religion than being captured alive. All the points he's earned with his god throughout his entire life has been lost with that one failure. Even in the face of that, he didn't tell the man where the fount was, not until Yuan showed up and asked him for the information herself. The thing is, Yuan never left the Jedi Temple. Nayland had used the Force to make Kizan think that he was talking to her so he could get the information, which means you need to hurry if you want to catch him. Kizan has no problem guiding you there, mainly because he wants to see Nayland die for tricking him. The Fount's traps are actually a series of tests meant to see what type of Jedi you are, and if you prove to be the wrong type, things will probably go badly for you. You pass the test and come face to face with Rajavari himself. He's obviously dead, but his Force ghost is still hanging around. He's not surprised to see you there. Nayland actually beat you there, and Rajavari figured that someone would be after the man, but he's gone now. Rajavari had refused to become one with the Force because the Jedi were imperfect, but in his lab he had made some machines that could give one apprentice decades worth of experience in a day. That way he or she could carry on his mission and he would finally be able to fade away. He had thought that Nayland would be that apprentice, but the Twi'lek didn't make it through the traps with his mind intact. Granted, the man was crazy in the first place, so he was obviously only going to get worse. Rajavari admits that that's his fault. Nayland didn't have the mental capacity to handle the knowledge that he got, so he never should have tried to turn him into his heir. But he did, and instead of remaking the Jedi into something great, Nayland wants to wipe them all out. And he plans on starting by destroying the forge where the Jedi make their lightsabers. Rajavari wants you to stop the psycho because his goal was never the end of the Jedi. He just wanted to make them stronger. He figures you'll need a real weapon if you plan on beating Nayland, and since you're carrying around the hilt of the very first blade, a crystal from the caves by the forge and a little bit of work at the forge itself will give you a working lightsaber that you can use to stop Nayland. He tells you how to get to the forge, and after that you point out that he inadvertently completed his mission of making the Jedi stronger when he forced the Jedi to go to war with him. The ones who weren't strong enough died, but the ones who beat him and his followers proved themselves to be true warriors. When he realizes that what you said is true, he finally becomes one with the Force and fades away, leaving you to continue the mission. The first step is to get your lightsaber crystal, which is guarded by a not-so-nice monster. Then you make your way to the forge and craft your weapon while Kizan stands watch. You finish the weapon right when Nayland shows up with a few of his people. He plans on killing you and destroying the forge. Granted, the people he brought with him aren't fully on board with the man, but they follow his lead, so you beat them all up without killing them. Instead, you plan on bringing him back to the Jedi Temple and letting them judge him. Seeing how you handled that situation, Kizan starts to believe that you're actually a herald of the scorekeeper, and he'll follow you anywhere and help however he can. Apparently, you don't have to worship the scorekeeper to earn that title, which is good because it gains you a very useful ally. You've saved the day, so you head back to the Jedi Temple to tell them the good news. When you get back to the council and tell them what you've seen, they want to hear everything about the Fount of Rajavari. Yuan finds the fact that you saw Rajavari himself to be incredible, and despite the odd way that she trained you, the other masters have to admit that letting you go on that mission was the best training you could have possibly gotten. And since you completed everything up to crafting your own lightsaber, they think you've earned the right to graduate from being a Padawan to a full-fledged knight. And as a knight, they want to know what you would do with Nayland. There's only two things that the council can do. They can kill him, or they can train him as a Jedi. That way they can monitor him and boost their relationship between the Jedi and the villagers. They think that's a good idea, so that's the plan they'll move forward with. Things seem to have turned out well, but while she's promoting you to the rank of Jedi Knight, Yuan collapses. Apparently she's been sick for a while, but she kept it a secret. The council has no idea what's wrong with her, but it's pretty bad. They're sending her to Coruscant for treatment. The researchers there have been going through the ruins of the Jedi Temple, and they may have found some teachings that could help heal the woman. And the masters want you to go with her to help in any way that you can, which is something that you were going to do anyway. So it's off to Coruscant you go to meet with the researcher Atros to hopefully save your master's life before it's too late. And that's where we're going to stop for today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you can, and I'll see you all next time.